All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have this conversation with you about ways in which to prepare for your career activities. And I just wanted to start out with some overall logistics. We'll have the hour, we'll have a presentation portion. You're welcome to have questions posted on the chat feature. We will be responding to some in the moment. There might be some that we might save for later on, but please use that as a way to connect with us and make sure that we're meeting your needs and addressing important questions that you have. We are recording this as we received the notification for, and the recording will be sent out after this. So you'll have access to that. And please do your best to keep yourselves muted so as not to disturb the recording. And please do continue to engage with us in the chat so that we're able to answer those questions. With that, my name is Matthew, he, him. I work for Career Professional Development Center, and I liaise with undergraduates in the Tepper School of Business. So undergraduates in business administration, as well as economics, and students from all the undergraduate colleges that are interested in the professional field of management consulting. So I'd like to welcome my colleague Peter to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Paul Pascal. I work with CFA, particularly to architecture, the School of Art, School of Design, and the BXA students. I worked from undergrad all the way up through doctorate, PhD students. And I also do specialty courses in UX, UI portfolio building, and just in general web portfolio building. So that's a special appointment that I do, which often is kind of working with some HCI students. So I kind of cover a lot of spectrums. And then I will now give the mic over to Katie.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Flanagan. I'm the Assistant Director and Career Consultant for Dietrich College, as well as the School of Drama. My specialty appointment area is for career assessment. So if you have utilized our Pathway U tool, that's definitely something we can chat further about. But I'll pass the mic back to Matthew.
Great, thanks so much. So just to give us a little bit of agenda, we'll talk about some of our upcoming fairs, and we'll break down some goals that might be worth thinking about in terms of these opportunities. We'll have a deeper dive with Katie through Handshake, its features, and making sure that you understand those tools, which are especially important for the virtual fair component. And then Peter will walk us through some good strategies to use to kind of work this event, as well as ways to engage in career and networking beyond fairs that will allow you to meet some of your goals. And we do have, as I mentioned, saved some dedicated time at the end for Q&A, but we're happy to answer some as they come in the moment through the chat. All right, so we want to just give you a brief idea. If you've never seen one of our fairs, this is a very quick video that'll give you a taste for what visually it looks like so that you can walk into it and sort of know what you might be seeing.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so here are some of our events that we're going to have upcoming. There's a number of them here. Let me just highlight some ones that are maybe newer or that are upcoming in this next couple of weeks. The first one is a new event, Summer Experience Pittsburgh. And that is a good opportunity to connect with Pittsburgh-based organizations in a sort of informal setting. It'll be over in Simmons Auditorium in the Tepper Building, and will allow some networking opportunities. Our signature event, which is Jumpstart for first and second year students, so early career talent in your freshman and sophomore years. That is a wonderful opportunity to do networking and connect with employers, make connections, get used to talking about yourself and hearing about opportunities. So really entering with that mindset. There sometimes are opportunities, but it is mainly designed as a way to learn about organizations and for you to connect, which is a wonderful thing for first and second year students to be able to do. So we're super excited to host that again this coming year. And then Encompass, we have a fall version of Encompass, and we also have a spring version of Encompass. So they have many different industries and majors that are upcoming, and that is always held the next day. So that'll be on the 30th. Important thing to note about the way we are doing Encompass this year, the morning session will be designed primarily for undergraduates to connect with employers, and the afternoon session will be primarily for graduate students to connect with employers. Now, if your schedule doesn't allow you for whichever one, it's fine for you to come when you're able to come, but that's generally what we have been encouraging our employers to connect with students at those sort of set time periods. The other important thing to note about Encompass is there will be a scheduled break for lunch for the employers. So it says 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., but the lunch will happen somewhere around 11:30 to 1-ish, to be announced the exact time about that, but just kind of know that they won't be available for conversations during that sort of lunch hour. They need to have their lunch, network with colleagues, catch up, maybe collaborate about student connections. So that time will be unavailable for interviews. And then we have a number of fairs of various kinds, specialty fairs, virtual fairs, and we encourage you to look on Handshake and check out some of those. They're really wonderful opportunities to connect with employers in the next month and in the coming weeks beyond that. Next slide. All right, so when you're thinking about approaching a fair, one, good on you for kind of thinking through this and then joining us on this call. It's really important for you, in order for it not to feel overwhelming, to set goals for yourself for this fair. It's very easy to just sort of be caught up in the moment and waiting in line and sort of wondering, okay, what am I trying to do? So the first key starting point is to really do some ground research. Who are the companies that are coming? Who are their either competitors or partners, however you want to phrase that, out in the field, and what is it that they are doing that I could find a connection point with either my interest, my talent, or my potential. The more sort of groundwork you've done, the more those conversations, even if they're super brief, can be fruitful. I've had the chance to have some workshops with employers, and one of them said in jest, when I've asked what advice they would give, is they said, please don't come up and the first question you ask is, oh, you work for Accenture, what do you all do? Really take that extra time to sort of research a little bit and learn more, because then you're already beyond sort of surface level step one, and you can dig a little bit deeper and make a stronger connection point with the employer, having done some of that background research. In order to do that, you also need to think about what you can contribute. So practice your conversations. Most of us are having conversations with friends and family and professors and classes, but we don't often have conversations about ourselves and our skill set to an employer or alumni. So even if I were looking for a job, and even though I help other people find a job, I would need to practice my skill set in talking about myself and talking with employers. You can always get better at communicating. So really take the time to do that in a way that feels authentic with you. When you've done that research about these different companies and you've thought about what your skill sets are, that's really how you can fold in those kind of competencies, those qualities that those employers value. So if you're seeing that your skill set is in data analysis and you can think of projects that you've done that relate to that, that can be a nice way for you to give a tangible example for them of how you might be somebody valuable to have on their team, or that you're somebody that they would be interested in developing or learning more about in future opportunities. You want to make sure you know what their process is. If it's an actual hiring situation, how do you apply? Is there an online portal? What does that look like? If you can get a rough sketch of what that time frame is, just so you come in as informed as you can be about knowing what your next steps are beyond this fair or this networking opportunity, whatever connection point you had with them, just so you know, okay, what's the next thing I need to do now? And then finally, in terms of goals, you'll want to think about maybe you might have different or slightly nuanced goals for the in-person versus a virtual experience. So with in-person, you'll absolutely be wanting to focus on networking, building personal connections, bringing a face to a name on a piece of paper. This is a great opportunity to do that in person, humanizing yourself. In a virtual one, there can be opportunities to do that, but a lot of times you might be in a panel or an information session, so you might be gathering information, learning a little bit more in detail about the organization. There are some organizations, particularly in some of the virtual fairs that we had on the prior slide, that actually do of a version of hiring through some of the virtual fairs. They might have sort of I would call it a mini interview, like a very quick chat with somebody to kind of assess if they might go to a first round. So even if they are casual events, I would prepare for them and think about them as if they could possibly lead to an opportunity. I think that's just good practice, and it'll make you feel much more confident in the moment. Thanks, Katie.
All right. Now that you're familiar with the kinds of fairs that we offer, it's now time to actually register for them. So we want to make sure that you are effectively doing that. And fortunately for you all, because you signed up for this session, you're already familiar with Handshake. And Handshake is our go-to resource to actually register for in-person and virtual fairs. So with in-person fairs, registration opens 2 weeks before the event. You might have received an email today that Encompass is open for registration. Unlike virtual fairs, you don't have to register in advance to attend. However, it gives you an advantage to see who are the employers that are coming and do the research that Matthew mentioned. You can also check to see if they have a linked position to their registration to know what are they actually recruiting for, or do they have info sessions as well in conjunction with the fair, either before or after. So it's good to be familiar with the platform as a whole, whether you're doing in person or virtual. With the virtual fairs, so much like the in-person, they are open 2 weeks prior to the event. However, this is a little more key than an in-person fair, because once that opens, that means the sessions will also be open to talk to a very specific employer. So in an in-person fair, you can kind of walk around to whoever you'd like at whatever time you'd like. But with a virtual fair, you will sign up either for 10-minute one-on-one sessions with a very specific employer representative, or 30 minutes group sessions. And that can be with up to 50 other students. So there's the personalized one-on-one, and then the group ones tend to be more of like a general info session, but some students also like that as well. As I said, the registration opens 2 weeks before the event. So once that is officially activated, you can go in and select the time slots that you're hoping for based on your particular schedule. You will sign up for the fair and you will sign up for the sessions. So even if it says up top that you are registered for the fair, you still have to pick those individual sessions or else you won't be able to attend anything. So make sure that you are doing both of those things. You might find that sessions pop up over time as well, so you can always check back before the fair starts. Just in case there's an employer that you want to talk to and a particular time frame opens up for you. So again, keep in touch with the page. All right, and so to actually find the pages to sign up, if you are on the laptop version, desktop version of Handshake, on the left-hand side, you will see something that says events. So when you click on events, it will give you suggestions of career fairs at your school. So that's the quickest way you can do it. You can also filter by category of career fairs at your school, but since it's right here, that makes it a lot easier for you. So once you do select career fairs at your school, then you will be able to see every single fair that Matthew had mentioned, as well as their individual pages. You will select one and then you'll see more info about that particular fair. In general, like I said, this is the desktop version, what you're seeing on the screen. Definitely use your desktop or your laptop to do the virtual fairs. That makes it a lot easier to communicate and use all the video features, the chat features to be effective in your conversation. All right, so for example, the Summer Experience Pittsburgh page looks a little bit like this on the desktop. To officially register on the right-hand side, this is turned green already, but it should say join event. When you click join event, that will turn green, it'll say registered. And then you should get an email confirmation that gives the full details of the day. It also gives you a link to add it to your calendar. So that could be a helpful reminder for you when you have multiple classes and tons of things going on. That's all you have to do for the in-person. Once you're registered, you're registered. However, as I mentioned with virtual, you will then go to this page that says available sessions. So it opts to the career fair details page. But when you click available sessions, you should see every single employer that has registered and what kinds of sessions they have. I mentioned there's one-on-one sessions, and there are also group sessions. So you should see the differentiations here and what time they actually are. If you look closely at the individual sessions, it says that there are 30 open sessions for this particular employer. So you'll know how many are left by the time that you register and see that 10-minute time frame. Once you do select an individual or group session, you'll actually see all the ones that you registered for on the right-hand side of your screen. So you can see that this sample student did 12 to 12:30 because the group sessions are 30 minutes. And the one-on-one appointments are 10 minutes. So you can see 12:50 to 1 p.m. If for whatever reason you need to cancel your time slot, you can go right in, click your session that you already selected and hit cancel. We definitely encourage you to do that because one, you don't want to take a time that somebody else could potentially use. And also for the sake of the employer, they need to know who are they going to be talking to that day. As long as you are a minute ahead of the time slot, so let's say it's 12:59 and you want to go to this 1 p.m. session, you can still register for that as long as it's before the session starts. Again, feel free to put questions in the chat because I know this is like the nitty-gritty logistics of all of this. Other things to think about, as I mentioned, you can fill your schedule with one-on-one sessions, more than one. but please do not schedule more than one slot with an employer. Again, to be fair to all of your fellow students, but also you're probably gonna have the same conversation with whoever those individuals are. And I mentioned that the registration closes a minute before that event. With a strategy, some students prefer that one-on-one time. Maybe they're just getting familiar with that employer, that you might prefer a group session, so that'll be up to you. But if you want that very personalized individual time, definitely do the one-on-one sessions. Each of these are video based. So make sure that you tested your video and audio ahead of time. Group sessions might not have the audio setting depending on what the employer chooses. So just keep that in mind as well. One other thing that you want to make sure you have ready to go with Handshake is that your profile, when you go to settings, your profile is set to the community setting. Because once you sign up for a one-on-one session with an employer, they will be able to see your Handshake profile that you put out there publicly. So making sure that you fill that out is also super important. All right, and I just reiterated half of these things. So make sure that it is visible in the sense that it's also on the community setting. So those things go hand in hand. Test everything out to make sure it works. And then one other thing of note with the video audio settings. So there is the internal Handshake version, but sometimes employers will have an external link attached. But either way, when it's time for your session, so if it's at 1 o'clock, there should be a button that lights up green so that you can click and go to whatever link it is, whether it's Handshake or they might have a Zoom link, Teams link, whatever it is. Peter will talk more about the prep side of things, but always make sure that you have a professional background and that people can see you. If you need to double check that your video works appropriately, again, we're sending out these slides so you can double check on that page. So think of the virtual fair like an interview. So if you have signed up for an interview or a one-on-one slot, in this case, you're expected to attend. If you're not able to attend anymore, as I mentioned earlier, make sure that you cancel that prior to your time. If it was like an interview and you missed or skipped out on your interview, like obviously the employer would be like, what's going on? So you want to make sure that you're being considerate of their time, and that in turn, they'll be considerate of your time in that 10-minute one-on-one session. So we do have a protocol for that. Just want to keep that in mind. All right, now that you have the registration ready to go, I'm going to pass this off to Peter to go further into more prep before, during, and after.
All right, thank you very much, Katie. So some of these have already been gone over. I'm going to concentrate on the ones that I think are the most important to kind of go over again. And I'm going to look for some other things to maybe focus in on. Matthew talked a little bit about the sort of preparation, and I'm going to go, more in depth in terms of these mentalities. Specifically, the goals for the event can be a really important one. And this may be something to kind of overlook in regards to what you want out of a career fair. But there's a lot of things that go into the preparation that then play out into a lot of other areas. The practicing of the networking, the preparations of your materials, getting that, those moments to actually get face-to-face time. These are all things that can be goals for you in regards to even just practicing talking with employers. And so having that in mind makes it a lot easier for when you're going towards these events to kind of see successes. Okay, I wanted to attend the event itself. I wanted to talk to 2 or 3 employers. I wanted to show people in real life my resume. I wanted to practice a tell me about yourself. These are all things that can be mentalities that are specific to career fair prep. Another important component is understanding that because you're a student balancing a variety of different things in your schedule. How much time do you actually have to devote to this in regards to the preparation and to the going of it? You might have classes during the time, you might have tests or projects due around the time. So try to be as reasonable as you can with the amount you have in regards to what you can give here. Students will come at different times to the fair dependent upon those schedules. And it should be something that you consider in regards to figuring out when you're actually going to attend and when you actually can attend. In some cases, there's limitations that are kind of beyond your control. So try to set some expectations for yourself in regards to what's reasonable for your time usage for this. And in tandem with that, how can you prioritize your time there? So specifically, what companies do you want to see the most? We'll kind of talk more about breaking that down in the next slide here too as well, or one of the next slides coming up, so we can jump forward here. Cool. So research. Matthew talked about this a little bit as well in regards to looking at the companies who are attending. So when you look at the registration profile through Handshake, you're going to be able to see the companies that are attending the fair. Now, there might be some big names that kind of pop out to you that you know and maybe are familiar with. And even then, you should still be doing some supplementary research on those companies, but look for companies who you don't recognize. If you've only been looking at large companies, maybe look at some of the smaller and mid-sized companies. You'll be surprised that we have a really diverse range of different employers that are going to be coming here for very different reasons. And it can be helpful to just do a quick check of these different employers, just because there might be someone in an industry that you really resonate with. And because they're on the list, you have the opportunity to go and look them up. So really look at that list beforehand and do some research. In tandem with that, look at the why. Look at if there's internships or full-time positions, part-time positions, look at the reasoning to why those companies are choosing to be there, because that will set the context for your conversations when you go to actually speak to them at the fair itself. And again, consider a full range. Step outside a little bit in regards to some of the specificity if you have more time, and potentially look at other industries. Look at other organizations that maybe you wouldn't say are your top tier, because again, this is an opportunity to practice. It can be a little bit easier practicing maybe with a company or organization that you feel a little bit less pressure to, just to get the feel for the rhythm of what is it like to interact with employers. And then for those companies of interest, really dive in. So look at mission statements, look at websites, look at the About Me section, look at the staff. Try to figure out what are the products that they make, what is their purpose, what is their mission, what are their values, what are their clients. These are all great talking points to make sort of like, referential, in regards to the conversations that you have, pointing to things that have shown you've done your homework, the organization, what it is they do, and you can be a part of that because you're interested in those different things. And so looking at especially company websites, also looking on Glassdoor, looking on LinkedIn, will provide you with that information that can make your conversations a lot more meaningful. And so that, again, websites, Hoovers, Glassdoor, all are things you can look at. And in particular, especially if they list it, look at any available positions. Look at positions that would be interesting to you, because again, the more context to the conversation, the better it will be for the conversation. Okay, and now establishing talking points is a good preparation point. So you're going to really try to hone in on your top most relevant skills and really try to focus in on telling stories and real life examples to demonstrate them. And so in terms of these conversations that you're going to build, you're going to point to some of the things that are going to be on your resume in regards to relevant skills and relevant experiences. But the more you can ground those things in, I did this in this academic project, I did this in an internship over the summer, I had the opportunity to work with. These are the different things that can ground those things in reality and kind of show that it's not just something you're putting to paper in regards to these skills. They have a played out actual example. So look for those examples and kind of have a library in your mind of the different things that you want to pull from. You have like 2 or 3 experiences that will be relevant for this conversation. So in the moment, you're not coming up with one of these examples. They're things that you've kind of prepared before time. In tandem with that, we'll all want to have a sort of elevator pitch for ourselves. This is the big tell me about yourself question. You'll come across this in a variety of different ways within the context of an interview or within networking. It's really important practice. It changes depending upon where you are in life, whether you're in your first year or last year within school, before or after different life experiences and work experiences. So this is something to continually be working on. And again, in the context of a career fair, this is a live example of working on it. So it's good to practice it beforehand. Practice with other students. You can practice with faculty members if you ask them politely in between classes. Practice with friends and family. This is something that you should be really, really familiar with. And this particular type of language is its own language. The more you practice it, the more you'll be fluent in it. We have a link. I don't know if this is linked out to a video or resources, but in general, we have resources on elevator pitch, and we're also really great people to come and talk to in regards to building that pitch. And ultimately, the goal here, especially with talking with employers and recruiters, is you want to get to a place where you're in a natural conversation. Employers and interviewers don't want to be in a place where the conversation is stiff. You want to get to a place where it's a give and take. You're asking them questions, they're asking you questions. You're in a more natural flow of conversation. And know that that's a goal for them too. The recruiters want to be in a place where they're having a comfortable conversation. And so you're kind of both working together to get to that place so that you can really get to the heart of it. Who are you? Why are you interested in this company? What do you want to learn more? How do you want to grow? These are all the things that come from that point when you kind of switch it from, okay, you don't maybe know who I am, to, hey, this is why we should have a conversation and why it would be meaningful. Okay, so in regards to what that specifically is, so look to answer some of the following questions. So tell me a bit about yourself, very, very common one. Why are you interested in this company? How would you hope to grow in this role? These are really good kind of anchor points in figuring out how to guide the conversation, because this is going to be where they're vested in the most. In regards to your background and experience, your academics and your work experience, those are parts of you in regards to how you pitch yourself, but you are going to be a person at this company, talking with people, interacting with people, being a part of the culture. Who you are is just as important as the experiences that you're going to be bringing in. So telling someone about yourself is a personality thing. It's a human thing. This is the moment to really humanize yourself and give them the opportunity to really see yourself in this role. Additionally, your interest should be flowed in with that. Why is it personally an investment for you? And in tandem with that too, how do you hope to grow in this role? And through answering that, you should be able to help kind of make it clear for them how you're going to help them as well. Because in this relationship, ultimately, in being an employee somewhere, you want to learn and grow more and advance yourself, and the company wants to advance itself too. So those two things, like, appropriately merge together when a good fit is found for a role. And so again, figuring out how you would answer those questions or how you would facilitate a conversation around those is a good beginning point for preparing. And then, and this is a really big one, what are the questions for the employer? It's really easy to kind of, you can do, quick Google searches for this and find kind of like vague, ways of asking questions about the employer. Things like, what is the role of this company? Can you tell me about the company? Things that you could find just by doing a quick web search and looking online. These are the types of things that you want to avoid a little bit more, and you want to like cut a little bit into more specifics about the role itself, especially if they're posting for a particular position. So something like, what is the typical day like for this role? What's a specific? What does it look like to come into the office? What do you do on a typical day? How does the responsibilities and roles actually play out at a day at work? That's going to be a lot more personalized. Asking about where the employees come from and the kind of range of the staff can also be another one. What sort of fields or backgrounds did they come from in regards to the people who are currently working there? That can, again, give you a better context of the fit. What are the main challenges that this role is going to face? What's going to be the friction points? What's going to be difficult? What do you anticipate being, maybe even points of conflict within the role? Show them that you're interested in taking those things head on. Show them that that's a consideration in regards to you analyzing if you want to be a part of the role, because they're going to be looking for problem solvers. They're going to be looking for people who are ready to take on challenges. And if you're preemptively asking about those, that sets you up to be, an envisionary point for being a part of that company. Okay, and now for the logistics, and this is the real kind of nuts and bolts of the day of and what's it really look like. I lost the presentation. There we go. Cool. So dress. So you're going to dress for confidence. In regards to the dress code that you want here, typically it's formats in the same way as an interview. Dress a little bit up the rung on the ladder of what you would expect an employee to work at this company would wear. You wanna be a little bit more presented than what someone would wear on their standard day at this company. That's a bit of a threshold. But mainly you want to feel confident about how you look. You want to feel professional. You want to feel like this is something that's different than your normal day to day for the most part. So you want to make sure that you're in a place where you feel confident about how you look. And smart casual usually is not the word. You want kind of like, opportunity for shirts and slacks. But a suit could probably be something that in certain cases you would wear. But again, it's something that's going to be more personalized to, again, how you feel confident in regards to how you want to interface with these employers. You're going to want your phone to be on Do Not Disturb. You can even turn it off if it's going to potentially be a distraction. It can be really easy to, in uncomfortable moments, take out your phone. So it's kind of nice to really have it be out of sight, out of mind. And you especially don't want there to be a notification or a phone to go off during an interaction with an employer. So it's really important to just get it out of your way so that it doesn't impede you from having a good in-person relationship. Bring your ID to swipe in. This is a really crucial one. You need this to get in. We generally suggest around 15 copies of your resume to bring along so that you can give these to recruiters as you're having conversations, kind of wrapping up. Have a notepad or some sort of open document to take notes. It can be a little notebook for yourself, just something to capture things that could be really easy to forget. Names, timeframes for roles, connections that you want to make later on, follow-up strategies, anything that you could potentially lose if you don't jot it down real quick. So just something to kind of capture those things that you could otherwise forget. And then this is a really tricky one, managing your time while in line. And this goes back to that initial priorities. If you have your main companies that you really want to get to, and you're finding that, you're only going to have a certain amount of time and it seems less than you had planned, really make sure that you're prioritizing those companies first so that you can get to see them as quickly as possible, because lines will build up at these events. Cool. Additionally, in terms of virtual considerations, we talked about this a little bit before. Still, you're dressing in the same way, dressing for confidence in regards to what is going to make you feel professional in that situation. In regards to your camera background, you want it to be tidy and simple. You can blur your background if you want to make sure that, again, you're the hyper focus of the video call, or add a virtual background. And in regards to all of those things, you want to run a test. Pair up with a friend. Do a video call beforehand just so you can see the orientation and structure of how you are in the screen. Make sure you're cropping yourself to fit in the screen. If you look at Katie, Matthew, and I, we're centered within the screen. There's a little bit of space above our head. I'm not just a portrait on the screen. I'm not super close. And those are really important things presentation-wise. If you do hand gestures like I do, make sure you're a little bit further back from the screen. Know that you can be cutting off the camera if you use too much hand gestures. So just make sure that you keep them in your lap if you're really gregarious in regards to how you talk. And be careful of shaky desks. If you're constantly banging into your desk, you can definitely be shaking your camera, which it can be, again, another distraction. So in general, you want to limit the distractions as much as possible. Okay, and then during the fair, and these can get, again, tricky in regards to pressure of the situation, but the main goal in terms of all these conversations that you have is you want to follow proper etiquette. Make sure you always introduce yourself. It's nice to meet you. When you're done with the conversation, thank them for their time. You want to introduce yourself through that sort of 30-second pitch / tell me about yourself. And you'll want to make sure that, again, that's something that you're fluid and comfortable with in regards to giving every time you interact with a recruiter. And then in terms of wrapping up the session, you'll want to be able to hand off that resume. Be ready with those questions. Again, if you have that notebook with you, you can always have the questions kind of on that preparation material so that you can kind of give yourself a little bit of a reminder so that when you go into these, you're not, completely blank. You have a little bit of a structure and schedule for yourself. You want to make sure you're wrapping up the conversation based around your priorities and goals. Again, if you've done the research for the company and you know and understand the roles that they're looking for, you'll be able to center your conversation around why at this time and place, and why it would be beneficial for them as well. Make sure you try to get contact information. LinkedIn connections can be really great because you want to be able to follow up with those after the fair, which we'll talk about here in a second. In addition, during the fair itself, it's going to be really intense, crowded, loud, distracting environments. At any point in time, we have a recharge room available at these in-person events, and it's just a quiet space to take a bit of a break, to mentally recharge, to get some quiet. We have a variety of different means to help put you back into that centered place. And so this is always available during the fair. So we really encourage you to use it, because if you continue to try to maximize your time by seeing as much people as possible, you might be giving up this opportunity to recenter yourself and have a better conversation going to talk to the next employer if you're a little bit more grounded and a little bit more recollected. So just know that this is something that's available to you, and you should use it if you get to that place where you feel a little overwhelmed with the situation. Cool. And then after the fair. So these are, again, important things that if you took, if you took the notes afterwards or kept a little bit of a document after meeting with different individuals, you will be able to follow up, which is where some of the real magic can happen in terms of next steps. So for everyone that you speak to, try to do an email thank you. If you're not able to do that for any reason, that could be something you do through LinkedIn, but email is the best case scenario. You'll want to additionally connect on LinkedIn with those employer representatives. Those can hopefully in the future then branch out to potential new connections. So think of every time you're making, you're finding your way into one conversation with one person at one company, that can always spread out into new conversations. And so each connection you make here, you want to make sure you double back on. Track those conversations over time. Try to stay connected as much as possible. After you've been able to, make some of those connections, if job availability is there, if internship opportunities and applications become open, make sure that you're connecting alongside with those names. So you want to reach back out to make sure that you have an actual talking point connection when you do the application. So you want to, again, a lot of jobs and internships come through this aspect of networking. So you've done the networking. You want to make sure you're utilizing that when you're doing job applications. And so additionally, there's, opportunities to sign up for more additional information sessions and events with some of these employers. You want to make sure you're tracking them and see if they post any additional events through Handshake or otherwise. This is material in terms of like when you learn more about these companies at the fair or make these connection points. This will allow you to prepare for interviews. If you do get to a place where you get brought in for an internship or a job application, you'll be able to point back to this relationship. So again, having those notes and that information prepared is really, really helpful. It's also good, and it's not necessarily on here, to when you leave for the day, give yourself a little bit of like a journal entry. Take down what you took from, as much as what you can remember, what you took from the experience. Try to ground yourself in potentially things you want to do next time for, following up and doing fairs in the future. Give yourself a little bit of a reflection of, again, what you'd like to do next time. And additionally, what went well? What were the things that you want to try to recreate for the future? And then when you learn more about these companies, when you are trying to expand more on your materials, when you're doing the job applications, this is all things that we are, a part of the school to do. So come to us, come meet with us before and after the event so that we can kind of help you in that process of getting ready and debrief when you're done in regards to what are going to be the next steps. So this is exactly what we're here to help you with. So come see us, especially on the beforehand, to make sure those materials are ready. Cool. And then kind of just to wrap up, as we're finishing up here, career fairs are not the only way to find jobs. This is a part of this, and this is again a bigger picture thing. Career fairs are also an opportunity just to learn and to practice and to do general networking as well. And so thinking about it as, well, it didn't succeed if I don't find a job, that's not really fair to yourself. This is a practicing thing. This is something where you're developing your career over time, and this is a single component of it. So it can be tricky if you put a lot of weight into this. And so again, as a mentality, know that this is just something that another one of many experiences that are pointing you towards, your eventual job, whatever it might be in the future. So use a variety of resources in your search too, in combination with the in-person events. Don't just look here. It's really well grounded to start with Handshake while you're doing your job search and internship search. Those are companies that have specifically chosen to look at CMU and to use that platform. So begin there, but look elsewhere too. Utilize LinkedIn, utilize Indeed, utilize outside resources. These are some of the tools available to you, but you should use everything at your disposal. And in regards to like additional things. So again, I do want to focus in on looking at Handshake first will be an opportunity to hone in on companies that are specifically in the context of looking at students and CMU students at that. Cool. So we have a list out of resources here. Katie, I think these are links in regards to additional resources for people to check out. You'll also additionally get this PDF as slides. This will be available to you as well as the session being recorded. So these are additional things that you can check in on in that preparation stage going into the fair, whether it's an in-person event or a virtual event. Cool. And now we've arrived at the question area. So whether via chat or through jumping here off mute here in a second, we'd love to stick around and answer some of your questions in regards to any of these different materials, anything that we presented on in regards to the fairs or preparing for the fair in general otherwise. So please feel free to stick around, and yeah, we'll dive into the questions and answers here.